all like to bridge those divides, but we might not know where to start. That's where Interfaith America's Learning in Action Bridge comes in. The Learning in Action Bridge, the lab, is a real-time source of opportunities and resources to turn enthusiasm into action. A curated collection of ways to get involved, make a difference, and be a bridge builder in a world that desperately needs them. Want to find funding for your work? No problem. Looking for events where you can connect with fellow bridge builders? We'll point you in the right direction. Maybe you want practical tools for cooperating across differences for the common good. The Learning in Action Bridge can help. Or maybe you want to build your knowledge and skills via an online course. It's all here. The Learning in Action Bridge drills down from the big picture of who you are to the finer details of your specific goals, zeroing in on the program, event, grant, or resource that's an exact fit for you. And the lab never goes stale. It's always updated with the latest resources and opportunities. So you can turn to the Learning in Action Bridge anytime you're inspired to take action. Want to make a difference in this polarized world, but don't know where to start? The Learning and Action Bridge. Building bridges to a better world. Learn more at interfaithamerica.org/lab.
Good morning, good morning. My name is Suzanne Watts Henderson, and I am part of the Interfaith America team. What a joy it is to be with you on this Sunday morning, and I want to begin with a question. I'm wondering, as I look out on this beautiful group, is there anyone here who has experienced some life this weekend? Let's use this. Let's use our sign. Yeah, I've seen signs of life all across the weekend, in this room, in hallway conversations. I've seen lots of respect, I've seen relationships forged, and I've seen impulses to cooperate with partners we may have just met. Friends, pluralism is such a life-giving way of showing up in the world. But as one who works in the faith and health space, I'm here to share that it's not just life-giving. Pluralism can actually be life-saving. Consider the case of Harnett County, North Carolina. Harnett County, eastern North Carolina, in the throes of the opioid crisis. A couple of years ago, county officials reached out to our friends at Campbell University. They were seeking input from academics trained in public health to decide how to spend opioid settlement money that was coming down from Washington. Appropriate ask, right? But rather than answers, our friends invited county officials into a process of deep pluralism. You see, our Campbell partners during the pandemic had forged authentic and trusting relationships with leaders from tribal communities, with leaders from Black churches, even from the local masjid. And they knew that to address a public health crisis as dire as the fact that people were dying each day from opioid-related causes, to address that crisis, they needed to bring into the room not just public health officials and public health academics and practitioners, but also those with lived experience, and also community leaders from moral and faith traditions that could speak into the design of the interventions that were being envisioned. To their credit, the county officials listened to our friends at Campbell. Fast forward to today. Harnett County is celebrating the fact that they have had a 72% reduction in opioid-related deaths as an outcome of this process. Friends, pluralism is indeed a life-giving way of showing up in the world. It is also a life-saving way. And I invite you, as you go from this place, to consider how you might bring some of the life you've experienced through this deep immersion in pluralism back to your own home, to your workplace, to your campus, to all the places that you can be that light of life. And now it's my joy to introduce my friend and colleague, Mike, who's going to host our panel for this morning.
Getting walk-up songs for pluralism is maybe the coolest thing that I didn't know I would experience. Anyway, hi, I'm Mike Whittington. I direct all of our faculty work at Interfaith America, and I'm so glad to be with you today for our closing plenary. You know, if we can take our minds back to the opening plenary, those lightning round talks with Allison. Where is Allison? Let's see here, the lights are bright. Anyway, you remember Allison, she gave us those signs, right? Agree, respectfully disagree, build, right? And we keep doing that, right? We agree, sometimes we respectfully disagree, we build with the same group of people over and over and over, and before we know it, what we've done is we've built pluralism. And today, we're going to be, as we close out, talking about building the stage for pluralism on college campuses. It's vital that this work takes place collaboratively, right? So it's easy when you go out from here, if you're a student or student affairs staff or senior leaders or faculty, to think in terms of your own kind of sphere of influence, and that's great. But what we want you to do is to think about agreeing, respectfully disagreeing, and building with folks across the campus. So what we're going to do is you're going to hear from panelists from across campus life on what it's like to build pluralism, both the good times and the challenging times, as you go back to give you some concrete things to apply in your campus life. Just a quick plug for the Fostering Pluralism in Higher Education Pluralism Playbook that you've seen on that reel. Look that up. If you just Google Interfaith America Pluralism Playbook, it'll get you there. Because that is our one-stop shop kind of roadmap for building pluralism across college campuses. One thing we're going to do, just to let you know, is after we have the panelists talk, we're going to do a Q&A. And what I want you to do is I want you to get out the CVent app and you click on the session details, you scroll to the bottom, and at the bottom there's a live Q&A. And then you're going to type in your questions. I'll get them. We won't be able to get to all of them, but let me have them, all you got. And then we'll put those in front of the panelists. Sound good? There we go. Okay. All the energy. All right, sound good? All right, here we go. All right, well, just like we can't build a campus by ourselves, we can't very well have a panelist, a whole panel with just a moderator. So please join me in welcoming my friends and our panelists, Sudha Wanawani, Abhinav Krishnan, and Paul Lambert. That's great. Welcome, y'all. It's so good to be here with you. So let's just jump right in. Why don't we start by y'all telling them about your role on campus, and your pluralism-focused projects. And we can just start with Sudha and just go on down.
Hello, everyone. It's so good to be here with all of you and share some of the work that we're doing. I'm going to do my best to not swivel like this this morning. So I am a clinical and community psychologist in northern New Jersey at beautiful Montclair State University, about a half hour, that's right, about a half hour south of New York City. And I have been there for 19 years. Yes, and we are a public university with a commitment to spreading the common good and increasing access to education. And we are inclusive in who we are, not just what we do. And I have, my role is to provide supportive spaces for students and create environments where students, faculty, and staff can truly feel a sense of belonging and be their full selves. And I really feel that I've really belonged at our university. Last year, I did the Bridging the Gap grant here, or Bridging the Gap training here, and I took it back to our university, and we got the grant, and we've been doing amazing work already, which I'll be talking about. I trained 18 of our staff, faculty, and administrators in the curriculum. We had a 6-week training in the spring, and it was those staff, faculty, and administrators who advise student organizations, cultural organizations, faith-based and affinity groups on campus. And a few of them are here today, shout out. We really look forward to then taking back what we're learning here this year and continuing the work. And I'm really glad to be here.
Hi, everyone. My name is Abhinav Krishnan, and I just want to say, I know it's 9:30 a.m. on a Sunday after 3 days of conference. So thank you all for being here. I know you could be in your hotel rooms watching Love Island, but it really means a lot that you're here with us. My official title is Field Coordinator of One Small Step at Vanderbilt. But you're probably like, what the hell does that mean? So let me break it down for you. One Small Step is a program by a nonprofit called StoryCorps, and it's founded on the belief that by sharing our lived experiences, we can humanize our different beliefs. And the way we do that on campuses is we teach students the skills they need to have conversations across differences, so purposeful sharing, active listening, curious question asking. Then we create the opportunities they need to have those conversations, to practice those skills and build those habits. And then finally, because StoryCorps is a storytelling nonprofit, we capture those stories and we model to the community what that can look like. So if pluralism is an orchestra, then One Small Step shows people that they have music worth sharing. We teach them how to play their instrument, and we instill the confidence and comfort they need to sit next to someone that's playing a different tune. Now, as the field coordinator, it's my responsibility to build relationships with our university partners, to listen to students and what you all want, because that's really important, and to find ways to weave our program into the existing campus culture. So, in short, I work with my team to set the stage for the symphony.
Nice tie-in to the theme. I like the symphony's great. Good morning, everybody. My name's Paul Lambert. So I'm coming to you from BYU, and I'm what we call the Religion and Human Flourishing Initiative Director there at the Wheatley Institute at BYU. What that means, so we do a lot of research on why religion matters. Academic research and a lot of public scholarship on understanding what role religion plays in flourishing societies, from its role in democracy, to its role in mental health, to education, to economics, which happens to be my particular area, its role in economics and business. And so we do a lot of that kind of public facing. But then at BYU, we have a lot of internal facing or student facing programs. And that's, I think, what we'll be talking about mostly here from. And that's where we try and empower students to build pluralism. So we have a real focus at BYU on pluralism and peacemaking. But the most exciting part of my job is when we get to empower students in their efforts, in the way that they see that, and the way that they want to build it. And we try and just give them the resources, sometimes help them with lessons learned, but really that it's theirs to try and build it in the way that they see appropriate in their contexts.
Thank you. All right, so let's get a little deeper. One of the things we talk about at Interfaith America a lot is the importance of knowing your why, right? That kind of helps us, kind of forms a North Star for us, keeps us going. Why don't you share a little bit more about your why, about how, what motivates you to do this work, what motivates you in your specific programs, what's your ethic of bridge building? I mean, maybe we start with Abhinav and then go to Paul and then come back to Sudha.
Oh, goody. I grew up in between two worlds. I grew up in and I know you're going to talk about this a little bit as well. I know, I was hoping I could go after you. I grew up as a child of Indian immigrants in San Jose, California. I moved to India for high school, and then came back to the States and went to college in Nashville. And so I kind of had this natural curiosity about the world as a result of being in two different spaces and having two different identities. And that might be familiar to some of you here today. As a result, I came to college with a lot of questions, and the students in the crowd might recognize this. I found that conversations with my peers kind of went one of two ways. Either they said, let's argue and let me prove you wrong, or they said, let's not talk about that at all. Let's just agree to disagree and then talk about the weather. And I personally found that frustrating. I thought I was coming to college as in part of a collective search for truth. And instead what I found was an environment that was rather apprehensive. Personally, I have a real interest in understanding our disconnection from our natural environment. And the work I do here today at StoryCorps and with incredible organizations like this one is important because I think connecting as humans is the first step in understanding how we can connect to everything else. I'm just really excited. I wonder what it would mean for us if we could better empathize with one another, what that could mean for how we relate to the rest of the world. And so that's what really gets me excited about this work.
Thank you, Abhinav.
Thank you. So like many of you, my faith is deeply important to me, and I'd say that's the first thing bringing me to this, and my commitment to seeing others as equals and children of God in my vernacular. But there's other things playing into this as well. One is I don't see another choice, another good choice than to build pluralism. We do a lot of work around the data, and what the data suggests is that flourishing societies are pluralistic societies. And I don't see a society where people are flourishing and happy if they don't have agency, if they don't have dignity. So it's a situation of not having another good choice. It also happens to be something I want to do, but it absolutely is as I think about the world, it's something that this is where my efforts need to be because I don't see another place where they should be. In addition to that, what brings me energy and excitement in this is seeing progress, which can sometimes be hard, but when I see people being able to live authentically, when I see people motivated and able to be who they are, to be connected to how they see themselves and how they see the world, that's what's exciting and motivating to me. That's the ethic, the dignity, the agency that I bring to this. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely.
As a psychologist, I have so many follow-up questions, but I will refrain. Abhinav, I felt so connected with what you shared. And I really feel being a part of two worlds, having been born in India and from an immigrant family, is really inherent to who I am. You know, also being a woman of color with so many intersecting identities, I'm always bridging internally. And so that internal bridging all these identities, assimilating into the U.S. through my life in an immigrant family, was always bridging to belong, bridging to connect. I grew up as the new kid in a community that really wasn't welcoming to difference. And so I was very bullied. There's a reason I'm a psychologist. You know that scene in Forrest Gump? You know that scene where he gets on the school bus and he's going front to back and no one's giving him a seat, and then he goes to the back and he comes back? That was me. You know, that scene really was powerful and triggering for me. And so I would go and no one would let me have a seat. I'd come back and then one person would give me that seat. And I think what has called me to pluralism is it is inherent in my core. To provide empathy, to connect and create opportunities for connection and belonging for people. And that's what draws me to this work. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, so let's zoom back into life on campus. All right, and one of the things we're aware of is that every context looks different, and the way we talk about pluralism then may look different as we kind of translate that into institutional contexts. I wonder if y'all could talk a little bit about how you talk about pluralism on campus and in ways that resonate with folks on campus.
Yeah, I can start that, Mike. Thank you. So one of the, again, I'm from BYU. You may or may not know, so BYU is associated with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and so that's the main vernacular that we use. The majority of students that are there, not all, but the majority of students that are there come from that faith background. One of the things, we're fortunate right now, the church, our church leaders, in particular our president, a man named Russell M. Nelson, has spoken extensively over the past decade-ish about the concept of peacemaking, and that's the term that we use within our faith tradition, but in this case synonymously with being an interfaith bridge builder or building pluralism. And so that already exists, that vernacular already exists around campus, and the call to be peacemaker already exists. And so there's a real hunger already in that, you know, those that are trying to be faithful to their religious tradition in our context are wanting to be peacemakers. And so they're hungry to understand why. And so we take, you know, the words like bridge building or pluralism, and we use those, but we usually initially tie to concepts that are already in the vernacular, like peacemaking. And so that's an advantage that we have. The other thing that's been really powerful is connecting it to the personal experience. Unfortunately, we don't have to go far for us to all have personal experience in why pluralism deeply matters, because we live in unfortunately, a pretty divided world right now, and particularly in the United States. And so one of the things that we've found really useful is for students to make it personal, not just to look at, you know, blue and red division, but to look at, you know, how's your home life? How are you engaging with your teammates on your sports team? How are you engaging with your roommates, your friends? And when they can identify the gaps, which again is pretty easy for us to do, that's a real strength in then making this personal. And then the last point I'll make is it's also really, really helpful for them to recognize the data side of this, to see why this matters. I mean, they know it intuitively. We know it intuitively. It feels right because it is right. It's nice to buttress that with data and to say, hey, look what happens when we have pluralism. Look what happens to civic engagement. Look what happens to mental health. Look what happens to economic opportunity. And those kind of things really in my experience, really speak to students in a way that helps them want to do more of this.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd love to add to that. At StoryCorps, we really lean on storytelling. And the reason for that is I think pluralism represents a really important idea, right? I like to think of it like diversity is not just the differences you like. It is also a 4-syllable word. And important context, I was a student just 2 years ago. So I still think like a student in many ways. And I remember like coming out of class, right, having, listened to professors lecture about academic and abstract concepts. And when I think about what it's like as a student to hear a lot of our dialogue programs and bridge building programs at universities continue to use abstract language, to lead with abstract language, I wonder like how my peers are receiving that. And so I think an important challenge for those of us here is to think about how do we maintain the values of pluralism and translate that into something like Paul was saying that's accessible to students. And so I like to use, at Vanderbilt, we like to use words that evoke images, right? Peace building is one of those. For us, it's storytelling, it's community, it's conversation, right? Like, think about it right now. As you hear those words, you can imagine two people sitting down. You can imagine your grandmother telling you a story. And I think that is, until we get to the point where people hear the word pluralism and they think of what we're trying to communicate, it's important that we lead with words that already have the values and the images that we're trying to convey.
Thank you for that. At Montclair, we talk a lot about creating a community of caring with empathy, and I think that's really about meeting people where they are. Pluralism is really about meeting people where they are. And one thing I want to focus on is when doing this work, when creating these groups or doing trainings on bridging the gap, it's so important that we convey that it is a process, it's a journey. We're all individually working on that process within ourselves, and want to emphasize, it's the psychologist in me, that we all need to do that pluralism work within ourselves, our own intersecting identities. So that's an important part of how we relay the message and the process of doing the work. And also that it's a journey, and it's just like cultural competence. It's a journey that we're working on together. So I just want to emphasize on that.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so this is really hard work. I wonder if you could talk about some of the challenges that you've faced, and how, where you have found support as you navigate those. It may be that you've navigated your way on the other side of the challenge, and those of us who've been doing this work long enough know sometimes that's not how that works, and that's okay too. So okay for this to be messy.
Yeah, I can take this one. In the bridge building space, we hear from university staff and faculty, we hear pretty often that students are too busy. And what we see at Vanderbilt is that the most involved students in our dialogue programs, in our bridge building programs, are actually the students that are like student leaders in 3 different organizations. They're the triple majors, right? They're working 2 jobs. And so, and this might be some of you out here, right here, and so the question in my mind is like, why are the busiest students the most involved? And why is that kid that's like pretending to study at the library, why aren't they coming to our bridge building programs? I see some of you laughing, you know what I mean. I think the common responses from administrators are, number 1, bridge building needs to be mandatory. And I think we know this about other mandatory activities on college campuses. Just because a student is physically present doesn't mean they're mentally present, right? And so if we're trying to engage them in culture change, we're going to need a different approach. And then administrators will say, okay, well, we need to provide incentives, right? Free food, money, merch. I don't know about you all, but when I was in college, I was like a raccoon. Like, I was finding all of the little things. And did I care about every single opportunity I went to? Maybe not. And so what we need to understand is that maybe we can't mandate or buy our way into pluralism work. Maybe this is one of those things that needs a different approach. And what I'm suggesting is going to sound like a lot of work. And that's because, like Sudha was saying, I think we need to meet students where they are, right? If you have a pre-med student that's like, why is this relevant to me? I already talked to my friends. Why do I need this work? Articulating to them that they are going to serve patients of different faith backgrounds and that is going to be relevant to their professional trajectory is one way that we can make this work relevant to students where they are, right? Think about, like, at Vanderbilt, we think about students in Greek life, right? Fraternities and sororities spend a lot of time forming brotherhood and sisterhood, right? Meeting students where they are is not creating a dialogue space and saying, you need to come to our space. It's going to their space and saying, you want to create brotherhood and sisterhood where, well, a brotherhood is a plurality of people, and it comes with a lot of different perspectives. Let's come together. And I think that brings me to my second point, which is that students are not a monolith, right? We can't treat them all the same and expect them to respond to the same programs. And so, again, meeting them where they are is incredibly important, recognizing that they have different interests, that they have different incentives, that they respond differently to different stimuli. I know it's a radical new idea at a pluralism conference, but, like, people are different. Before I conclude, I want to point out that I might be the youngest person to speak on this stage at this conference. And I wonder, like, what more we could learn if we took the experience of my colleagues here and we combined it with the perspectives of the students that are in the audience here today.
So let me just say, absolutely, and how grateful I am for Abhinav and so many Abhinavs out here. And I'm looking to my own group of students that are from BYU. We desperately need the articulation that you have, right, and that your peers have. So don't be bashful. Come speak to us. We need to do this together. So thank you for that call, and I add my voice to it as well. Let me just build on what you said and just quickly point out something else. I think too often we see this kind of work because it feels good as an extracurricular. It's not an extracurricular. We've got to build pluralism into finance. We've got to build pluralism into our chemistry courses. Pluralism is not a nice idea that we should do because it feels good and it's, you know, and that's a thing that I think we often do, partly because we're dedicated to our disciplines, we're dedicated to our craft. This is part of the craft. If we want finance to be the best it possibly can be, we've got to build principles of pluralism in it. If we want accounting to be the best it can possibly be, we've got to build in principles of pluralism. So it can't be its own thing separate from everything else that's happening on campus. And we have to do that authentically to what Abhinav is saying, but I think it's so important that we see this not as an extracurricular. And that's what I would say is one of the biggest challenges, is that's where people put it. They compartmentalize it somewhere else, and they're not seen as part of the everyday, and it must be. It has to be part of society. That's the only path forward. So it has to be part of all the elements or all the inputs to society as well.
That's right. Absolutely.
Real quick, can I just so it sounds like curricular inclusion as well, right? So not just co-curricular in the coursework.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Sudha.
At Montclair, we're really working on our harmonizing, getting in sync, and bridging the silos on campus. And I really believe this work has to be embedded in your universities at all levels in all we do. Top down, bottom up, sideways, and all around. And harmonizing is challenging, right? And at an individual level, I just want to say that harmonizing, so I wasn't sure when I was going to fit this in, but I was a choir geek. I'm a singer. I will try not to break out into karaoke. But if there's extra time, harmonizing is really hard. Staying true to your own voice part while hearing and honoring all the other voices and being informed by them and getting that synchronicity going is hard work, right? And so it's so important that it's done at group levels, system-wide levels, and at our individual levels. So I want to emphasize the importance of that. And as we do it each in our individual levels, we're able to more and more then spread that, be less triggered, be less reactive. I think also when doing bridging work, it's so important to convey that it's not about changing the other person. It's not about that mushy middle that we refer to, right? It's not about debating, that it is about honoring all our perspectives. So it's hard work and it's challenging just by nature of what it is. And I feel so grateful to be here in this community where we're all doing the work.
Thank you. What's giving y'all hope? Oh, and by the way, this is our last formal question, and then we're going to turn it over to y'all. So we've got a lot of questions already. I'm not checking out Facebook on my phone over here. I'm looking at your questions.
Yeah.
Keep them coming. What's giving you hope?
Well, I will say, Abhinav, you're giving me hope. Yeah. Can I ask the students, undergrad and graduate in the room, can you raise your hands for us? I'm not going to make you stand up because it's early. You all are giving me hope. Yeah. My two children, so when I started at Montclair, my kids were 2 and 4, and now they're a 20-year-old junior at NYU and a 23-year-old graduate of Wesleyan University in Connecticut. They give me hope. And my university and all we're doing in terms of embedding this work into our system. Our president's office a year ago formed a new office of inclusive excellence. That gives me hope. And the top-down commitment that we have from our higher administrators. A few are here today in front of me. You all give me hope. And so I also want to emphasize the importance, I wasn't sure where I was going to fit this in. Self-care is critical in doing this work in order to keep our hope going, right? Because of those challenges that we talked about. So it's so important to reach out to each other to form the network, and often we get those allies and peer mentors or actual mentors from across disciplines at these conferences, right? So that networking, that hope, my colleagues from across the country that have been supports for me through the years, they give me hope. Thank you, and thank you for all of you.
Well, so that is very kind. Unfortunately, I can't accept all of her praise because I had the privilege here at this conference to meet emerging leaders that were once sitting where all the students were. And these people have been coming for 10 years. There are many of you who have been coming for that long. And I think it's great when someone can get on stage and or say some nice things and connect with the audience. I think it's much more important when people continue to show up, right? There are people here who are moving in silence, right? You might not hear them speak. You might not see their name in a brochure, but they're making massive impact, and they are motivating individuals and institutions to do this important work. And so I'd like to receive the gift you gave me and extend it to the people that are here today. Like, there's some individuals I have in mind, and there are all of you I haven't met. And I think that, oh God, I sound so cliche. That gives me hope.
We have time, Paul. Real quick, what's giving you hope?
It's easy not to have hope, but one of the things that I see from time to time, and it's on an individual basis, is I see people feeling more free to be themselves, more free to say, yes, I do believe, and because of that, I'm going to act in such and such a way. I'll give you a really brief example from the business work that I do. I was on a call recently. This was not a university call, it was in some of my consulting work. I was on a call with two other people of different faiths than me. One of them shared that their father was probably nearing death in the next few weeks. And we knew we had known each other. We'd worked on business stuff together before. We knew of each other's religious backgrounds, again, different, but respected those religious backgrounds. It was aware, we had created a mini pluralism, if you will, among the three of us. Without any hesitation, the other person on the call said, "Brian, can I offer a prayer in my tradition for your father?" This is a Zoom call. We all kind of bowed our heads. This other friend of ours said a little prayer. Not in Brian's tradition, not in mine. What a beautiful experience that was. For me, for Brian, who felt the love of this individual who doesn't share the same faith, but what a tribute. Now, he knew that would be okay for Brian because we had that relationship, we had established that relationship, so it wasn't coming out of nowhere. That was a beautiful experience of pluralism where someone was authentic in their outreach, in their love towards someone else. It wasn't in the vernacular or in the language that Brian probably would have chosen if he was doing it himself, but it was so authentic and so sincere and so meaningful. I think of that same thing happening on college campuses, in society, how beautiful it can be when people in authenticity and sincerity can offer what they have to give. And that it's accepted and received with authenticity and sincerity, even if it isn't exactly the thing that I might ask for. Even if it's about us, it's not about me. And I was so moved by that and many other experiences like that. Those kind of things give me hope at that individual person level.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for your questions. We got some great questions here. I'm just trying to decide whether we dive right in with the hardball question or we go with these. Let's start with the hard one, and then we'll kind of end on not such hard ones. All right. And by the way, so we can get through as many of these as possible, don't feel like you all have to chime in. All right? That's okay. But you're welcome to. Okay, so here we go. I'm just going to read it. Some faculty, staff, and students are opposed to pluralism because they are certain that their moral and political views are correct and certain that opposing views are dangerous and harmful. How do we persuade such people to embrace pluralism?
I think people can be opposed to positions. I think they can be opposed to terms like pluralism. I don't think most people, there may be a few exceptions out there. People aren't opposed to people, right? And I think the more we can get to know each other as individuals, maybe we don't start with pluralism. Maybe we don't start with saying, you need to be more pluralistic. But maybe we start by saying, who are you? Maybe we start by saying, what's important to you? Can I get to know you? One of the most common questions I get is, how can I build an environment of pluralism for me? They usually don't say it that way, but in essence it is, how can I build an environment where I can be myself? Well, the answer is, build an environment where someone else can be them, right? And if we start there, then we can warm people up to the idea. This is about, at the end of the day, pluralism isn't, right? Pluralism isn't king. people are. We're after people. We're after dignity of people, not a term. Pluralism is a means, and so I think if we focus on the individual, we'll get to pluralism eventually.
Can I just say, I love that you said, I think you said something like, can we create a space where, if you want to create a space where you can be yourself, create one where they can be themselves also, or first, or however you put that, beautifully, well put.
Yeah. I just wanted to add to that. One of the questions we start off with in our One Small Step conversations are, tell me about your background, right? And that's an invitation to someone else to be themselves. And I like that frame, Paul, because it suggests that like what we do for ourselves can also be something we do for others. It's this culture of reciprocity that I think is present in many faith traditions and feels very relevant in this work.
I just want to echo that this is a journey. It's a fluid process, and each individual also, right? We see what's on the external, and there is so much there that's leading them to that position, right? It sounds like we're talking about individuals that may not have that strong back, soft front that we've learned about, right? And they may have certain traumas, experiences that are leading them to have that hard front right now. But that is their process in their journey right now. And they're working on that. We're the choir, right? We're preaching to the choir right now. Another music reference. And there are people that might not be at that point right now, and that doesn't mean that they aren't going to get there at some point, but just to recognize they are where they are perhaps for a reason. Perhaps they're in a space of experiencing retriggering or trauma or whatever it is in their personal journey that we may not know. So that empathy, I think, is one tool to help us cope with what we may see on the outside.
Yeah, I love that. So maybe here it could be that sometimes simply empathizing, being present, not trying to force that's okay, right? It's okay.
It's the meeting them where they are,
That's
right?
exactly right.
And maybe finding what is that place to connect. And it might be, because we're all at different places, it might be at a more superficial level, you know? It might be more focused on sharing food or breaking bread, and that might be where that person or that community is. With another community on campus, you know, and again, it's a process.
Can I just add very briefly? I love, so what's been pointed out here are elements of pluralism, and I don't think we should let the term pluralism be the enemy of the elements. I mean, the reason pluralism works is because of the elements of pluralism, like you said, empathy or love or respect or dignity. Those are the things we're after. That's what creates pluralism, this label that we have. But it's not the label we're after the elements of pluralism. And so that by acting, by engaging in those elements, that's where we get pluralism. So that's the thing we need to start with one another first.
Love that. I love that. Okay, so let's imagine that you have, here's another question. If you had unlimited resources and no red tape. It's like this is your experience, right? Okay. What's the one big, bold thing you'd do to make pluralism thrive on your campus?
I want to address the premise here, because, and I'm sure somewhere here we'll have an actual answer to the question. What that suggests, though, is that there is not a different perspective.
Say more.
Yeah,
Bridge building. Say more.
For there to be no red tape and an unlimited budget suggests that there isn't a plurality of different ways to use our resources, that there aren't other issues to tackle. And so I think of this from a creative's perspective. Constraint breeds creativity. And I think if we here had every resource in the world. I sometimes dream of what I would do if I was a benevolent authoritarian. And I think if this is going to come back to haunt me sometime in my future.
I love you. I want to adopt you.
But if no, my parents are watching, so
You did so good, Mama. You did so good. And you should be so proud of your boy.
so if I was a benevolent authoritarian, right, we wouldn't be forced to make the difficult decisions, to be creative in our responses. We might be able to not meet people where they are, right, because we have the resources to do so. So I want to say that I think this question was very well intentioned, right, and I'm very curious to see what Paul and Sudha have to say about this. But in some sense, as creatives and community builders, we should see the constraints as motivating us to do something different, do something well.
Well put. Okay, Paul, what would you do, though?
So Abhinav for benevolent authoritarian, there's my vote. So I'll answer through a little story, a little anecdote. One of the things I would do is I would invest in as many, and we're talking about higher education, I would invest in as many student-led pluralism initiatives as I could. And the reason for that is, they're seeing the world differently than I am. And in a context of higher education where we're trying to impact students, I think there's so much import in giving them some reins to run with this. Last year, we had 2 students that kind of created what they called a peacemaker initiative or peacemaking project. It's a new group on campus. And they wanted to have this thing around a really divisive topic to bring people together to teach them how to talk in their own way. And I thought it was a good idea, and we had done stuff like this, and usually you get, you bring pizza and you get, 50 or 100 or something like this. 750 people showed up to this thing. Wow. Because it was in their vernacular. They ran it. We did no marketing. I think we provided money for pizza or something like this. 750 people showed up to this thing. We were blown away. I think there's so much that can be done when we empower students, and we should work with them, as I was saying earlier, we should work with them, but they see things, they can articulate things in a way that I'm not ready to, I'm not positioned to, and I'm ready to do important things in my own right, but they're ready to do important things in their own right, and I think we need to trust and invest a lot in our student initiatives and help them be successful. That's one thing I would do.
Agreed.
Oh my goodness. So I think unlimited, you had me at unlimited resources and I would build a multi-faith center at our university and empower students and our faculty and staff to build this together. I would increase our Office for Inclusive Excellence and all of the centers across campus that can be part of this work so that we can really embed it in all we do, curricular and co-curricular across campus. And also, since I'm a psychologist in the counseling and psychological services, I definitely would expand the resources for mental health and wellness, because I think that is at the deepest level. I think if we are all at our best and well and balanced, we can then, back to that soft front, we can then be able to empathize with others and connect and meet others where they are when we are truly at our core, at our best.
Yeah, please. Yep. So I actually want to get on this one very quickly because it's just too good. So here's what I would do. I would make it so that pluralism as a discrete with discrete learning objectives is integrated into the core list distributions, and ensure that faculty across all faculty, aim big, are trained in pluralism soft skills for teaching across disciplines. Oh, wow. Sure, thank you. And that way we got students, we got faculty, and then we could also throw in, of course, student affairs components to that as well.
Don't forget the benevolent authoritarians.
I was
getting
getting to that. We need also that as well, senior leaders on
You'd be
board.
my right-hand man, don't worry.
Okay, so we have time for one last question, and it's the perfect one for us to kind of answer in what one of my graduate professors called lucid brevity. May he rest in peace. Okay, here's the question. What's a belief in our space? What's a belief you think is actually holding us back?
I think at an individual level, when you're experiencing your own pain and trauma, it's really hard to bridge. It's hard to hear, to listen, to understand that other perspective. And so I think that can hold us back also because, you know, it's back to what I talked about earlier about harmonizing being so hard, right? Because I think it all goes back, if we really want to get into a maybe later, another discussion, it's all about cognitive dissonance theory. You know, it's like when you hold true to what you believe, you have to believe your choices and your beliefs are the ones that are correct, are the right ones. And so it's really hard to open that mindset and believe that there are other ways of viewing the world. And so I think that holds people back. We're, again, at a different place here in this room. We're here. But I think that that is what holds back pluralism in our other settings.
The belief that everyone gets it. I think the failure of many a movement has been assuming that, like, we can rest in our moral righteousness. And I know as a bridge builder, it's tempting for me to believe that, like, the way I think about the world, i.e. pluralism, like the fact that I believe everyone should be able to tolerate, accept, respect, relate to people with different perspectives, it's tempting for me to believe that that is a belief that everyone shares. And I think the questions earlier today addressed that. And so we need to remember that everyone's on a different part of their journey, and some people may never get to the point that we are here today. Let's not assume that they get it. Let's meet them where they are. That's been said many a time before, and I think it's worth saying again.
I think a belief or a perspective that holds us back is a lack of humility. I think I'm saying this slightly differently than the others, but it was certainly there. Assuming we think we know the outcome of engaging with that person, or assuming we know that person. I suffer from this too. Many of you I don't know. I see you and I'm going to make judgments. I'm a human being. I think I know what our conversation is going to be like, and I don't. I think we need humility and to recognize each other, and I'm going to use my vernacular, so translate it to yours, to see each other as equal human beings with dignity, children of God that have immeasurable and eternal purpose and dignity and worth. And I think if we can bring that kind of humility to each conversation, I think there's hope for this. That lack of humility, though, is going to hold us back.
Beautiful. Let's end there. We thank our panelists. I hope this has been helpful to kind of get your creative juices, continue to help your creative juices flow as you get ready to go back to your respective campuses. Don't get up yet because it's not over. I'm done. We're done. But Joey and Noah are going to come up with some final words.
Much. Another round of applause for our panelists. And most important, can we give ourselves a round of applause for being here and staying all weekend? I know that this is the closing plenary, but we're not quite at the finish line. You do have one more training session left. And so we just want to take this opportunity to thank you for showing up. Thank you for the courage to lean in to discomfort. Thank you for the courage to just be present in your rooms and the conversations and the laughter. I've heard a lot of laughter, and that makes me happy. So thank you, and we just look forward to staying in touch with you. And I invite Noah to come up and give some final words. Thank y'all.
Gotta lower this bad boy. My name's Noah. I'm the manager of student experience here at Interfaith America. And Joey and I are just one part of the big team that had made this weekend possible. So I want you all to help me make as much noise as you can to help thank, first of all, our Interfaith America staff, if you all could stand up. Our emerging leader and external trainers, I think they're in the back. Woo! The Marriott staff who have been serving and helping us this entire weekend. And then finally, and most importantly, Colleen and our Evergreen staff who have made this weekend so seamless and beautiful. Thank you. All right, we have one final training sessions back in your room, and then it's time for goodbyes.